Hi, my name is John, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about the real reason that you don't meditate, as compared to the reason that I hear or that you think that you don't meditate. So first off is the reason that most people believe they're not meditating, or that they will report that meditation is not part of their life, despite the fact that they know it's a useful thing, they've seen the research, they know that they need something like that in their lives, so on and so forth. The reason that is reported, or that is consciously observed or given to oneself, is that it's too hard, it's too difficult. I can't concentrate, I don't have time for it, I don't understand the techniques, it feels like I'm doing it wrong, things like this. Fine, that could be a valid reason, and that is a challenge to practice. But I think the main reason, and this goes not only for meditating, but for increasing consciousness, for contemplating any of these other practices, the main reason that you don't do them on a regular basis is because you are unwilling to admit how hard your life is and how little you like yourself, to put it simply. So what happens when you meditate is your awareness is increased, your consciousness is increased, and one of the first things you become aware of is just how fucked your mind is in terms of its inability to concentrate. It's scattered, it's constantly having meaningless, useless thoughts, petty, anxious, sad, lonely, messy, disorganized. All of these qualities become immediately apparent to someone who starts paying attention. And maybe they're already apparent to you before meditation, before increasing consciousness or anything, but once you engage the practices, it becomes so much more apparent and more poignant and in your face, and this is just something that we typically don't want to deal with, and so we don't. So keep this in mind next time you don't meditate, or when you've fallen off the track. Notice that it's you wanting to stay asleep to the aspects of your life that are uncomfortable for you, to look away from, or to not become too aware, because you feel like if you become more aware, then you'll be overwhelmed. That's not our objective here. Our objective is to work through everything in its own time, to let go of what can be let go of, and work on it, and work on it, and work on it. And yes, to become more conscious sometimes means to experience it more intensely, but it's only by experiencing it more intensely that we're in a place to do something about it. Not to mention that becoming more conscious means not only becoming more conscious of this shitty stuff, but of the amazing stuff, and the beautiful stuff, and the useful stuff, and the true things, the empowering things. It allows us to become free, because once we're in the place of those mental tendencies or physical habits, then we have the option to do something different. But until then, it's going to operate automatically. We're going to be lived by these patterns. But yeah, a big barrier is even just starting. I think we all have an intuitive sense that, like, if I were to really put my attention into my mind and into my emotions, or to contemplate existentially or something like this, then we've opened Pandora's box, so to speak. And there will be no going back or something. And kind of, yes, this is the case. Once you become keenly aware of suffering, it's kind of hard to forget about that. But I would definitely advise it to anyone to just go for it and to go over the hurdle. Life might get more difficult for a while, but you're getting in touch with something that's already true, and you're getting in touch with yourself. It's you already there. And this is a condition that's already playing into your life, so why not dive in and become more unified with it, or more integrated with it? So yeah, so stop telling yourself that you're not meditating because it's hard, because you know it's not hard. All you have to do is sit there and pay attention to something. What's hard is to be you, and to suffer, and to be confused existentially, and to have life issues and all this stuff. And what you're trying not to do by not meditating is to avoid those facts, to avoid how bad it really is, and how little control you really have over your mind. So take that next time you avoid meditation and say, fuck it, I'm just going to go ahead and become more aware, and I'm going to be honest. So you're confronted with this thing like, okay, I have no control over my mind. How do I, I need to rethink myself then. If I have no control over my mind, then what am I? And that's a process in and of itself that is worth engaging. So start meditating. Stop using the excuse that it's hard, because meditating isn't hard. What's hard is life, and it's going to be hard whether you meditate or not. Meditation just puts you in a place of higher awareness, higher consciousness, higher authenticity, and skill with regards to that difficulty. The price you pay is to experience it more fully, but the reward that you get is to experience it more fully. Thank you. My name is John, and in this video I want to talk about the idea of being on the cutting edge of reality, or on the cutting edge of consciousness. This is a concept that is really interesting to me, because the idea of being on the cutting edge has been appealing since before getting into spirituality, before I conceived of it in the scientific domain as being on the front end of science, investigating new things. And what I'm thinking of now is being as an entity, as an aware presence, or an experiential medium, or a surface on which consciousness is being self-reflective, or however you want to conceive of it, this thing that I'm perceiving and thinking and reflecting, conceiving of this event as being on the cutting edge of consciousness, as being the latest, greatest development in the development of reality so far. I'm the most upgraded tool, I'm the most cutting edge experiment in existence, and in living life as such. So the interesting thing about being on the leading edge, or the cutting edge of consciousness, is that we are in a place of creatorship and discovery simultaneously, in one model, or one way of conceiving things. So if you think of infinite consciousness or being as inherently untapped potential for experience, then what it is in and of itself has no quality and has no form, no specificity. When something does come into form for the first time, we can ask a question: has it been discovered? Am I discovering it, or am I creating it for the first time as consciousness? And I think the truth is somewhere between those two, which is kind of an amazing thing to play with. So imagine that you might have self-reflective experiences that are occurring for the first time ever. You're the first human to ever have an experience like that. You have created from nothing a genuine truth, a genuine relativity for the first time. You invented something, you brought it into being. Pretty interesting. Likewise, you've discovered something, that you have discovered a potential, or one capacity of consciousness. So think of yourself as being on the cutting edge of reality, creating new experiences and discovering untapped potentials in reality and consciousness. Imagine that this is one of your functions, if not your only function, and let it motivate you forward. Hi, my name is John, and in this video I want to propose a contemplation or consideration about the nature of reality too. So if you've been involved with spiritual stuff, or have done enlightenment work, or have subscribed to any kind of great nest of being ontology, or epistemology, you're going to have the notion or the concept that reality is fundamentally consciousness. It's kind of like a giant dream thing, or reality is fundamentally experiential in nature in some way, or an experiential nature is fundamental to reality. Okay. That makes sense. It helps us contextualize our first-person experience of being a human. Yes, it's a development of consciousness, life, creating more and more complex self-reflective experiences. Okay, but where did the context for life come from? And what order of consciousness can be recognized as that source? Because when we typically talk about consciousness, it's a human-based, experiential, this kind of thing. And if we're saying that is the fundamental substrate of reality, what is its connection to the things that are undeniably not conscious, like planets? Where did the planets come from if that consciousness, which is not planetary, seemingly, is primary? Consciousness or awareness or experiential nature needs a universal context, a planet with gravity and atmosphere to exist. So where did that stuff come from? What was here before awareness was here for there to be distinctions made? And when there are no distinctions being made, there is no being of anything. There is no consciousness or experience. But somehow the context or the environment for this awareness came into being such that the awareness could form. What is that context? What is its nature? What is its origin? What is its source? If you subscribe to these great nest, great chain of being ontologies, or really any spiritual ontology or explanation, what you're going to find is that the fundamental substrate or substance is consciousness. And when we say consciousness, we're typically referring to something of an experiential nature. If that experiential nature, substance, is primary, what was here before any experiential nature stuff was here? We can think of it as being this is the fundamental distinction between consciousness and awareness. Awareness is that which requires a planetary survival context to arise. Consciousness is that which precedes the planetary context and is the possibility for it. Consciousness does not necessarily have any distinctions being actively generated within it, but it is the potential for distinction for awareness. What is the mechanism by which consciousness turns into awareness or actualizes its awareness potential? What is the nature of the context in which experiential substance or experiential being comes into being? What was your face before the universe was birthed? What was your face when the universe was birthed, but there was no life in it yet? Yes, we can say consciousness is fundamental, consciousness is primary to us, but we have a story of a galaxy, we have a story of a planet. It seems very convincing. The galaxy and the planet was here first, in a time when there clearly wasn't perceptive faculty. There wasn't mind. There wasn't me. So there's no experience. There's no perception. What is the relationship between my conscious experience and the rest of reality?